Where is that one? Here's a comment from Skamashhead. This is what I'm talking about. Building a drone and flying it. If I hit some shit, does that mean I have to buy a whole new drone? Like, what parts should I buy in bulk? I can't afford to throw away $300. So good news, if you crash your drone, you probably don't need to buy a whole new drone. Best case scenario, you break an arm, you have to buy frame parts is your best case scenario. The camera lens is another common break point. If that's an analog camera, it's no big deal. It's like $12, $15 for a new camera lens, maybe less. If it's a digital camera, it can be more expensive because you may have to buy a whole new camera. The DJI O3 is the worst at this because you essentially end up replacing the whole camera just to get a new lens, and that's like $100. Motors break fairly commonly, so, $15, $25 depending on how much your motors are. A good quality flight controller and ESC installed correctly in a frame should take a lot of abuse, although occasionally the ESC will die. But here's the thing. You're probably not going to throw away $300 on a single crash. But you are 100% going to throw away $300 before too long. The FPV hobby requires constant injections of money, almost always. Somewhere out there, there's a dude who bought a little tiny whoop, or who bought a little, 3-inch quadcopter, and he only flies it on Sundays very carefully, and he never crashes it. Just flies it very slowly, never crashes it, takes it out, flies it around, lands it, takes it home, and he's been flying the same drone for 2 years. That's the exception. If you're pushing yourself at all, you're going to crash and you're going to break shit, and you're going to constantly be buying new shit to repair the shit that you broke. And so you're going to go through $300. And I'm not saying, there definitely are people out there who go through $300 in a month. Shh, don't tell their wives. I think that's probably not typical. I think if you were to budget $50 to $100 a month for your FPV hobby, I would say that would be like the minimum in terms of consumable parts, propellers, motors, batteries. You're going to destroy all of these things, and you're going to need to buy more. And my guess would be $50 to $100 a month. And obviously if you run out of money and you don't fly for 3 weeks, then obviously you're not going to break anything. But if you're just regularly out there every weekend flying or after work during the week, I think that's sort of like the baseline for what you want to think about being able to spend. And then occasionally you'll just blow $600 on some new thing because it was cool.
Yeah, also, I think you kind of touched on it, but just to make it a point, if you fly at a park slowly and cinematically, and you have a drone that's like a 5-inch that's built well, you're going to break that way less than you're going to break, some plastic ducted whoop that's 3-inch and that you're jamming through holes at the IKEA parking garage. You know what I mean?
Right.
You really have to think about what you're building and why you're building it and how you're going to fly it. You can break arms on grass and you can not break stuff on concrete, but it's just there's levels to all that stuff.
Yeah. The thing is, the more you push yourself to be a better pilot, the more money you're going to spend on breaking things. The guys I know who have gotten very good very fast, the consistent factor is that they have spent a ridiculous amount of money. And it's not that they spend money on high-end shit that you can't afford and that makes them good. No, it's that they go hard. They try a trick, they crash, their quad explodes, they throw it aside, they get another one because they came with 5 quads today. And they go home, they come with 5 brand new working quads. And they go home with 1 working quad that's beat to shit and 4 exploded quads. And then they go home and they just fix those quads. And then they show up the next day with 5 beat to shit but still flying okay because they cobbled them together last night quads. And then they go home at the end of that day and all those quads are exploded. And every night they're going home and they're putting 3 motors, 1 ESC, 1 camera, 1 broken arm. And every night, maybe, they're spending $50 or $100 in parts. And I'm not saying you have to be able to do that, But I am saying that if you can do that, you will get much better, much faster, because you will be able to do things that push your own limits. And if you're not pushing your limits, you're not improving as fast.
Also, I just want to add one more thing here, which is that there's a variable here, which is you're building this. So this could go from you build it great and everything's wonderful and you have a great drone that's super solid and you're not going to have any issues other than how you crash and stuff. But there's another world, like my first drone, I fried a stack the first time I flew it after 3 minutes. And then I flew it 10 more minutes and fried another stack. Both of them were my stupid mistakes from how I mounted it. The first one, I mounted the bottom plate upside down, so the ESC hit the nuts in the frame that were like poking up under the ESC, and it cracked a FET. And then, you know, my other one, I tried to do a stack converter, so I had a smaller FC and a bigger ESC, and I used 2 loose of TPU. And it, in a crash, it all slammed to the side, and I broke the flight controller and the ESC. Yeah. So like, you got to be considerate of like, you could make mistakes. You're learning how to do all this, so like, again, you have to be used to burning $300 if you have to burn $300.
Yeah, you have to learn from your mistakes, and if you're smart, you will pay very close attention to how professionals build. And like when I teach people to build, I sometimes get really self-conscious about, because they'll be building and I'm like, well, if you just turn that screw a quarter turn so the threads are facing the other direction, you know, some little, not literally that, but some little nitpicky thing. Well, I think you should run the wire under here. And I realize that all of these tiny little nitpicky decisions that I make when I build add up to a quadcopter you can beat the crap out of, and it just keeps coming back for more. And each of those little decisions is informed by some mistake or some way that I broke a quadcopter in the past. And to somebody who's just learning to build, I can imagine them going, what does it freaking matter? Like how you mount the antenna or how you run this wire, you know? And yet it does. And so a person who is able to pick up on that stuff quickly is going to do well. On the other hand, sometimes you see a person who goes, I've blown up 3 flight controllers in a week and I don't think this hobby's for me. This is all a bunch of crap. It's like, well, if you blew up 3 flight controllers in a week, chances are, no insult intended, chances are you did something to blow them up. And if you're not willing to look at that and go, why are these blowing up? How can I prevent this from happening? If you just go, well, then this is not the hobby for you. Anyway.